welcome to the On the Run with Jess and Tom podcast.
This is Jessica Taggart.
And I'm Tom Conway.
Welcome. We are finally back.
We are back.
And as promised, we have this amazing topic today. We are going to talk about our ayahuasca experience and all we have learned
Yep.
on our last trip to Peru. It was, by the way, it was like amazing, super, like
Excellent.
we really did learn a lot. So we can't wait to share everything with you guys. So
So, Taggart, how are you?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm excited to be back.
Me too. I
Yeah,
missed the podcast.
me too. Me too. And we've been getting ready for this. Um like I think we went to Peru kind of with the idea of learning about it but not really doing it, right?
Hmm.
We went to Peru thinking that we wanted to find out a little bit more about the whole ayahuasca experience.
I mean, personally, I was hoping to learn about it firsthand. That was my hope.
To learn about it and to experience it.
Yeah. It was just the time frame was not optimal for what was suggested to us by people, and so it was. It looked like it was going to be a non-starter. That we weren't really going to be able to accommodate that aside from the other stuff that we wanted to do while we were there. But everything worked out as it always does, as is meant to. And so you know,
Yeah,
good trip.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what we heard before we actually went to Peru was that the ayahuasca retreats are usually between 7 to 9 days long, right?
Hmm.
So we knew we were visiting the jungle because we're trying to learn plant medicine as well. So we were we were gonna go and try to study a little bit about the plant medicines, and of course a little bit of ayahuasca, but we didn't really know that we were gonna have the time to actually experience it. And we actually talked to a lot of people in the jungle. A lot of people we came in contact with actually do the ayahuasca on a regular basis, right? And it's very common for people who live there. And so we went around, we went to the ayahuasca museum and we were trying to find out, where are the best places to do this,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and by talking to people, we realized that there are ceremonies that are one night long or one morning long, right?
Hmm.
So we decided to go with a trusted source, and it was a morning experience.
Hmm.
So you want to go a little bit?
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, I just thought it was awesome that Guns N' Roses personally welcomed us to the jungle, and I was so impressed by their presence there, and so that was great. And so yeah, no, the experience, like Jess said, I mean, the one of the main intents of our trip was to, enhance and develop her natural healing business, which is something she does outside of this podcast. And so we were really looking forward to kind of learning more firsthand about the plant medicine, potentially getting a source, for purchasing it, etc. And so we just continued to, and as I say every podcast, probably not everyone, but I should, like, I'm a big believer, right? Like, I believe in God and I believe in fate and all of that. And so we would just repeatedly connected with the right people, right?
Yeah.
Like, we just kept coming upon the right people who were not just, they were friendly, and they were willing to help us, and communicative, and just really really interested in our experience. And so it was great. And yeah, so we wound up in Tarapoto, and with the intention of seeing the ayahuasca museum, and one of the other laboratories that they have there locally. And again, we made a couple of really interesting connections with people, and before you know it, we were going to have an experience of our own. And so it was just really awesome.
Yeah, it was very exciting and a little bit scary, to be
Hmm.
honest,
Yeah,
because
sure.
this was the first time of us doing ayahuasca. Even though I already did something similar, it's not similar, but I did a psychedelic. I had a psychedelic experience in Colombia, so I was already kind of I had opened up to that world, right? And I was a little bit scared for Tom because this was his first time doing the whole thing. But I'm glad everything worked out. Like you said, everything was perfectly orchestrated by, like we say, he always plans everything to
100%.
perfection,
Yeah.
right? So we got to the place where we got, and it was just the perfect place. It was the perfect moment. And everything just worked out. We traveled from Tarapoto to Yurimaguas. It was a 3 hour ride, very exciting ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And so wait a minute, let's just stop there for a second. So here's the thing. Like you had mentioned that you were a little bit scared. And so if anybody should have been scared, it'd be me
Yeah.
because, I am not a fluent Spanish speaker. And things are much less structured, in terms of just about everything there, which I really like, by the way. I like, in my travels to Central and South America before, I just always admire the innovative nature of Hispanic people and their cultures, and they're just problem solvers and they get it done. That said, you know, taxis aren't what they are in Midtown Manhattan, and so travel is just much more, and especially because we were also in the mountains, and so a lot of those crevasses are not passable by vehicles, and so we were on, basically scooters, like a three-wheel motorcycles in a cart, and you're getting your butt beat off, with the bumps and all this other kind of stuff, and if it rains, you're gonna get wet and all this other kind of. But it was awesome, and so the ride, to what is it? What is the name of that town again? Yeah,
Yurimaguas.
Yorimagas
Yeah.
was a long road up a twisting mountain road. Of course, we had the obligatory stop by Federales when we were up there. They wanted to see what we were up to, and thank God you have these taxi drivers that are just they're committed to their craft. They really know their job. They're interested in getting you there safely and back. They don't take advantage of which they easily could because of a conversion rate of the money. I wouldn't know either way, and it was just really great. We put our trust in the right people, and after a ride that would have been something out of a drama movie, we leave around sunset and drive hours into the night, hundreds of miles up into the mountains, changing terrain, going through little villages, and finally ending off at a dirt road, which would prove to be a challenge later on in our trip. And so it was just really amazing. Estate doors swing open, and we're ushered in, and the gates close behind you, and it's just really amazing. Really something like you'd see in a film.
I think it was like a metaphor for life, right? If you really want to get to where you need to get, it doesn't matter the road you take, right? And you always get to wherever you need to get at the moment you need to be there.
Hmm.
So it was just perfect. And I'm gonna give you a little background about ayahuasca. Of course, now it has become very popular, right?
Yep.
But this has been a plant medicine that has been used by our ancestors for years and years and years and centuries, right? So it started being used in the indigenous cultures in the Amazon. They use this for medicinal purposes, to help with the spiritual growth, personal growth. And now they use it for, to release anxiety, stress, and we saw some other different uses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's pretty much, and in my experience, I felt like, they talked about how this is the plant spirit, you know, helping
Yeah,
you.
that was a pretty interesting concept, right? Let's
Mhm.
like kind of pause there for a second. And so, I think as thinking people these days, I think most folks acknowledge that humans have spirits, or at least I'd say the majority of the population of the planet Earth acknowledge that humans have spirits. Many people take that over into the animal kingdom too. Dog lovers would swear their dogs have spirits, and their hamsters or whatever else are going on. I don't think there's a lot of us that consider the fact that plants have spirits,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And that was a really interesting thing. I mean, listen, I've always been interested in that. There were studies done. I think I don't I'm misspeaking probably even here. I think it was in the '60s, and so I had seen a special on Netflix once where they did experimentations of plants communicating in between rooms and stuff like that, and they would be measuring, the activity and cellularly in the plants. And I was always fascinated by that. It didn't seem demonstrative enough to me at that time that I really, took it much more than, oh, that's pretty cool. I wonder if that's true. And then you kind of think it's the most abundant life on the planet, pretty much, other than probably bacterial or microbial life. And so it would be likely that they too would be infused with the spirit, right? But so getting back to where we just were, is that it is actually, you're connecting with the spirit of the ayahuasca vine when
Mm-hmm.
you consume and undergo the ayahuasca experience. That's just fascinating. That
Yeah,
is
yeah,
really
yeah. That
fascinating.
concept was
And
very
of course,
like
I've teased you, multiple times just because I like to be difficult about it. But help me, ayahuasca, help me.
well, well, we'll talk about the trance and the whole, experience in a little bit, but yeah, I felt like I was actually in contact with this huge presence, right? And it was the spirit or whatever you want to call it, but it's something else in there. But I like that concept, right? That we know that we are all energy anyway.
Hmm.
So, and we can tell with our own plants, right? When you give your plant a good environment, when you actually pay attention to your
Like my
plants, it's
my
like,
dead rose bush that's dying on the patio over there right
yeah,
now.
well, we haven't
Yeah.
been very very loving with that poor plant, but when you actually care for plants or any other life creature, you will see it flourish.
Yeah, there's an
You
exchange.
know?
There's an exchange of energy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
undoubtedly.
When you pour that energy of love to anything, it grows and improves,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, and that connection with the jungle is something,
Hmm.
to me is like you feel their presence, and at the same time it's just like it's contagious, right? It
Yeah.
feels like it's such a powerful experience just to be surrounded by this creation which you are part, right? You are part of this creation, so you are as perfect as the whole creation around you,
Hmm.
and that's really empowering. So when I heard about the spirit of plants, working in you and through you, and they actually present to you what you are ready to see,
Yeah.
which is amazing, right? And that's why I said, like, I went to my through my first experience being very like, okay, I'm open to receive, and I think I was kind of ready to see things because I've gone through a long period of therapy that was leading me to a place in my life, right?
Hmm.
There were little indications of certain things that I was already like ready to receive.
Yeah.
So when I did the first experience in Colombia, I was already open to receive what the message was the first time, right?
Hmm.
And then the second time, I was open to continue to find out, to
Yeah.
continue to see inside of myself. And I feel like that's exactly what these spirits do for you. They once this is in your body, I feel like there is a connection between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and you become a whole, and as your own wisdom,
Yeah.
as what you tap into is your own wisdom, the wisdom of your soul,
Yeah.
the wisdom of your spirit. So all of the experiences that you are ready to see, or all the information you are ready to give yourself, actually, you will get,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So this time around, I went with the idea of asking questions,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
and since I knew it was a spirit, and I was like, be kind to me, let's be kind to each other. And I was like, ayahuasca, talking to ayahuasca like if she was
Yeah. It's pretty awkward.
a her.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, everything in your world is a her.
But it was a very, 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 very strong presence, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, so as anyone who knows me knows, is I'm really terrible at like, um, well, I shouldn't say I'm terrible at planning, but in this particular situation, I didn't really have an agenda. I thought it was more of I don't want to say a passive experience, but one where the experience happens to you. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't really understand what kind of role I would have in it. And so I didn't have an agenda. For me, it was like, okay, I want to see like what's going on. Like I wanted ayahuasca to tell me things, that I felt I needed to know. And so it was a really incredible experience. Like I said, I do recall speaking to ayahuasca, either spirit or just hey ayahuasca, you know. But for me, it was just a very different, but I mean, serenely powerful and incredible experience, you know, because you are consciously present in it. You know, you're in there thinking like you feel like you. I don't think you don't feel different like you might if you were intoxicated on alcohol or something like that. You know, you feel like you, but you feel like you have separated from your physical form, you know, would be how
Mm.
I describe that, you know. And so I mean, are we ready to talk about our experiences? Do you want to talk more about other things before that, or
Well, but whoever haven't heard anything about ayahuasca, or if you don't know a lot,
yeah, it's
what they
probably
do. What they
yeah.
do actually with ayahuasca is a mixture of two ingredients,
Hmm.
usually, right?
Hmm.
Is the ayahuasca vine, and the other one is the chacruna. Is a leaf, right?
So a
Is
shrub.
a plant,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
a
a
shrub.
shrub.
Hmm.
So they mix these two ingredients, ayahuasca being the conductor of the right
Yeah.
that helps activate the
It allows the DMT to pass it the blood-brain barrier into the brain and become psychoactive. And because DMT has such a metabolic, a short half-life, which means that it's not in your system for long, it actually slows the absorption down of the DMT into your brain to allow you to experience that experience, which in and of itself is not a very long experience, as we learned.
right,
Right. Yeah.
right,
And so normally that wouldn't even be possible because it would get broken down in your gut and the DMT would never even reach your brain. And so when ingested orally, like it is with
right.
ayahuasca.
So the ayahuasca is the component that helps the DMT break down in your body,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so you can get into this deep experience. And when we went to the museum, the guide from the museum actually said ayahuasca is a jealous plant,
Yeah.
right? And this is one of the reasons why you need to cleanse yourself before you go and do something like this, right? You
Right.
need a specific diet.
Which traditionally is why the experience is so long, right? Like that's why the 9-day thing is recommended, both for the pre-diet and the preparation, and then for observation purposes after. But in our case, because ayahuasca was really just mixed just with the chacruna, it was a much safer, shorter experience that didn't really require a lot of that
Right. It does
process, you know.
require like a post diet, right? Because you don't the integration process between the plant spirit and your whole self takes a while. They even say it can take months after you take it, right? Especially if you do it for a couple of days.
Yeah, as we know, there were people
Uh-huh.
there that did it like
Yeah.
4 times in a row. Like that's insane.
Yeah, so the integration process I think is longer than what we experienced because we did it once, right? So and it wasn't as long as for other people, but I think next time we want to do it, we would want to do it like at least 2 or 3 days, right?
I would say at least
So
two. Yeah,
two, yeah.
I would say at least
Mm-hmm.
two.
So and he said, yeah, ayahuasca is a very jealous plant. So anything that is in your body that would cause you not to get submerged into the experience will be expelled out of your body, right?
Yeah, that's part of sure.
and 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 um and we actually didn't do the whole ritual with shamans. We did it with a medicine man,
Mm-hmm.
a maestro, and he's very well known in the area. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were like, we really went and say, this is the place where we need to go, and it worked out because it was exactly the time we needed, right?
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
It was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they did explain, right? The first take was more for acknowledgement and and for you to actually discover what it is, right? But it doesn't really give you as much as the second one would, because this one is like the portal opening. First one
Mm.
is like the portal opening for you to see where you actually get to see the things you need to work on, right? And one of the things you mentioned, I remember that when you had anything negative come to your mind, you felt like throwing up.
Oh yeah, so that was like crazy, and so yeah, so yes, something that you said prior what was put, yeah, anything that wasn't like that was going to prevent it from working was going to be expelled from you. But it was also that it was an energy cleansing in and of itself, kind of, and so part of what ayahuasca does is, yeah, it clears you out of all of those negative things that are going on in your spirit. And so for me, and so I had noticed, well into the process, um, after I had finished, expelling the contents of my stomach a couple of times, that I would, as my thoughts started to drift or just become kind of negative, and kind of like, remember, I was in a kind of like a question asking exercise with ayahuasca, and so I would think of like a negative, something negative, in my life, and kind of question that, or it came into my consciousness, and I would vomit. And so I realized that, and again, this goes to show you how aware you are, aware exactly of what's going on. And so after it happened to me a second time, because what happens is, after, once you begin purging, for lack of a better word, you have a period that goes on for, I don't know how long it is. I guess time's distorted, but let's say you go through 10 minutes of you're going to be regularly doing that, right? And then then your stomach's calm, and then, so for me, I noticed that it would come back, that feeling that I wanted to vomit would come back, and I was already clear. And so I began to test it. So I started to think of, like, for lack of a better word, like evil stuff, and I would become nauseous and throw up. And I
Hmm.
was fascinated. I think that was so fascinating.
And that's exactly what it is. It's a cleanse,
Yeah.
right? And it's a cleanse first. It cleanses your physical body because that's the first, like the first goal, right? To cleanse your physical body out of anything external,
Mm-hmm.
right? Anything that is not that,
Mm-hmm.
the medicine plant.
Yeah.
And then after that, you start purging your internal world,
Yep.
your soul, right? You
Yep.
start purging all the stuff that is not necessary anymore, so you can work with the pureness of your soul,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like amazing, because I really feel like you need to experience it a little longer so you can get to that point,
Yeah, I
right?
was disappointed. I was disappointed it was over so quickly. But actually, I just want to touch on something that we're talking about, and so one of the purposes of the pre-diet and the post-diet is because of the, for lack of a better word, the trauma that your gut goes through, right? Because it is an aggressive cleansing, and if you were to do it 2 or 3 times or 4 times, it's often prescribed. you know, you, you've got to rebuild your gut flora, like, essentially, right? Like, that
Hmm.
biome is stripped. And so that's why a lot of the post diet is recommended, a lot of the mild foods and stuff like that, because your digestive system is kind of recovering. And
Hmm.
so we noticed that a little bit in,
Yeah.
in the following days, like, not crazy, but I could see some things were a little less agreeable to me than they had been prior,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's pretty cool, but it is a cleansing in every sense of the word. And thank God everything comes out of the north, everybody, in case you were worried. So no worries.
Yeah. And that just a thought came into my mind that this was a ritual they practice in the regular,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, there were
Back in
religions built around
Yeah,
it, right?
back in
Pretty
back in the
cool.
day, it was just like a healing circle, right,
Hmm.
where everybody would experience this. And I can only imagine how close to the source everybody was back
Well,
then, right?
yeah,
And if you think about the things that were built in that era, in that area too, and you say, if these people were like so purely connected,
yeah,
right? These things were possible because they were that connected, right? So
possibly, sure.
it's like, can you imagine how many more amazing things we can do if we get to find that pure connection?
Yeah.
Like,
And you know what I find interesting is that there there are, versions of Christianity that actively use, ayahuasca in their practice, and I love the hybridism of those two things, where you're practicing the indigenous practice, but it still connects you to that source, and in the case of Christians, they believe it's God or Jesus Christ. And so I find that actually a beautiful thing, because I feel like so many times when you discover something in life, if you have a spiritual belief, um, doctrine, that it often challenges that, right? You say, well, I can't. How can I believe this if I believe this? And stuff like that lets you know that it is a total belief, right? Belief is
It's a
of the
whole.
Almighty is maybe not universal, but it's certainly integrated. And so I love that. I think
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
incredible.
there's a powerful source,
Hmm.
right,
Yeah.
of creation. Whatever that source is for you and for other people, in my existence, I see it as one, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
and so wherever we go, we can go to India, we can go to South America, we can go to wherever,
Yeah.
we can go to China, and to me, that force is still the same,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that pure connection,
Yeah.
right?
That's been something I think. And sorry to cut you off. That's what I did, but that's something that I've found very enriching about our relationship. That's something that you certainly enlighten me to more, because you really weren't raised with a structured faith, a
Mhm.
belief in God, yes, and a
Mhm.
recognition of God being love, and um, all those things, yes, but not necessarily, you didn't necessarily practice the Catholic faith, right? And
Right. I
so it's
mean,
kind
we
of
were
cool.
Catholic
Yeah,
by
like a
label,
lot, sure, like a lot
right?
of people are. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was baptized. I did my confirmation. I did my first communion and everything,
Hmm.
Catholic. We never went to church,
Yeah.
really,
Hmm.
other than when I was
Yeah,
baptized
that's a,
and,
that's
and
a
communion and whatever
large
else.
a large percentage,
And
correct.
but one thing I do remember, because I used to be in the chorus, right? For
Hmm.
like, we have the religion classes in our schools.
Sure.
Every school had that
Yeah.
class. And so for that, I was in the chorus, always singing like God songs and stuff. And one of the songs that really got stuck in me was God is love,
Hmm.
and that's the only thing that I actually learned from my whole all these years,
That's everything.
learning
The
about
only thing you learned is everything to know. Right.
God is love. That's
Absolutely.
all I kept.
Yeah. Hmm.
It was like, but that's what my heart wanted to keep.
Hmm.
So, and it's been amazing. It's been an amazing experience. What else can we say about ayahuasca?
Many things. Um,
Oh, I was reading about the studies they're doing about DMT being in our third eye, or the pineal
the
gland,
pineal gland.
pineal
Yeah. Uh huh.
gland,
Uh huh.
right? And they have made studies with rats, actually. So they find the
Sure.
pineal gland
Hmm.
actually produces small amounts of DMT,
Yeah.
right? And some people tend to believe that you can actually activate that uh, production of DMT
Hmm.
by tapping into meditation,
Hmm.
tapping into mindfulness
It would make se-
routines, right?
it would make sense, right?
I mean, if you start, practicing meditation as a routine every day, and you start tapping into that, imagine, into your third eye, which is your imagination, your connection to your power, of visualizing
Hmm.
like the perfect world where you want to live, right? And if you practice that in a daily basis, you can go places, you can actually access a different state of conscious when you commit yourself to practice this on a daily basis,
Yeah.
right?
We have this conversation multiple times per week, where I've just had such um, terrible success in meditation. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I do seek to become successful at that. I think it's critical.
Mm-hmm.
And up until now, I've only successfully meditated one time, as I've said on multiple, or at least one other show, um, for about 20 minutes. And other than that, it's just so difficult for me to connect uh, at that level,
Yeah.
with my
And
energy.
what's interesting is, like, you have dreams, right?
Yeah.
You have dreams. So what does it take for you to dream? You need to be
REM.
asleep. You need to be asleep.
Rapid eye movement sleep.
So in order for you to be asleep, by when you are still awake, you just have to calm yourself down, and get yourself in that sleeping state, right? In that state where your conscious mind is not interrupting you 100% all the time, right? So you have to put yourself in that sleep mode where you are out of the way, right? So
Hmm.
you can actually start dreaming, because a meditation can be like a dream,
Now, is
you
that
know?
something that I could go to Jessica Taggart Holistic Wellness to understand?
Yes,
Wow,
of course. Of course.
that's so good.
all
I
you
hope to
have
get a gift certificate
all
soon.
you have to do is knock on the door.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But, I just I think every time I ask myself this question, I come up with a different answer.
That's
Because
actually alarming.
no, a different way to get
Yeah,
there.
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, I know
That's
what you
that's
mean.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
I mean, your mind, yourself is so creative. Your mind is so creative that you can actually come up with different ways to induce yourself to get to places, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think everything is here, and ayahuasca told me that.
Wow,
You
she
know,
was so nice to you.
it was so
The female
nice.
plant ayahuasca.
Yeah, because she was female
Yeah,
and
why
she
not?
liked me,
Everything
and I
is. Yeah,
was
my
kind.
truck. Yeah, my
She
truck.
was
My
kind.
truck is a female. Everything
It's
is.
it's crazy because I got many, 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 many answers. I got visuals and many things that I didn't remember that happened. She showed me a lot of things, and but at the same time, I was like, okay, I want to go back to this to get an answer about this specific event, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard this voice saying, "You got enough."
Yeah, that was me.
That's it.
See, I got enough already.
You got enough out of that situation.
Uh-huh.
You already found closure, in this period of time, and there's no need for you to find any more,
Right. Mm-hmm.
details about the situation. So there is a point where you come to terms with whatever situation you went through, and you're like, okay, I accepted it, I forgave, and I forgave myself, and I can move on, right,
Yeah.
to the next thing,
Mm-hmm.
because you're
Always,
always gonna
there's
find
always something else.
something,
Sure.
right? You're always gonna find something. But I found it very kind of her to do that, you know?
I mean, yeah, you guys have a great relationship. So cool.
Yeah.
Good.
She was like, no, you don't need to go there. I'll
Yeah.
show you something else so I can bring you some clarity,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the first take is more of that, more clarity,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, my experience was, I guess I would put it much more mild. But I was amazed at the fidelity of the images um, that your mind can create. I mean, for me, it was odd. When I first felt myself, going into what you would describe as trance. I saw these tiny green squares, trailing off away from me in like a curve, at probably like, let's say, 22 and a half degrees or whatever. Not that that's important, and it was just like doot, 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 almost like like
Like electricity.
no, it was more. It's funny. It was more of the feel of like drops of water than electricity, and they were just like kind of like dancing into the distance. And so, obviously I was looking at them and began to follow them, and then things appeared over on my left, and then it became more of a sensory experience in terms of my feelings than it was my visuals. And I remember seeing like way down here like a little like gold man or a yellow man standing on top of a box. He had to get a hat on. I think he had like a little like a hat on or something, like a top hat or something. I don't know. um, but mostly I just felt this overwhelming power, this feeling of connectivity, of the fact that we are connected to this universal force that just felt just like it felt like love. I just felt this like sensation of um, joy and acceptance and
Belonging.
connectivity. Yeah, belonging to, but to something that was limitless. Like you had opened the door to something that was limitless, and so it was very, very powerful. um, and yeah, I can't. it was just that feeling over and over again. Like you were like, it was almost like something was saying, "Hey, you're safe. You know, you're part of this. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this is you're connected or something." It was really really wild, really
Yeah,
really cool.
and that's pretty much the clarity that you were looking for, right?
I guess, like I said, I
It-
didn't really have an agenda like that. You know, like I was like kind of like, all right, like what am I supposed to be when I grow up, God? You know, you know what I mean? But not so much. Like I wasn't like, hey, this happened, why? Or I want to find out about X, Y, and Z. You know, I mean, I think I was asking, yeah, like why am I like this kind of like, but generically, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really have like I wasn't trying to solve a problem, so to speak,
Yeah,
a specific
I
problem, I should
mean,
say.
all of these messages are put out there for your interpretation too,
Yeah.
you know, and the more you think about it, the more you're gonna find the reason why these images were presented to you, right? And
Yeah.
so, and every time I think about this experience, I'm like, oh my God, this means this, you know, and I keep opening and this is why I'm telling you the integration process takes a while because you still see things, you know, that you experience in that moment and you're still trying to find the answers,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and as time goes on you start understanding, you know, what the message was.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Which
crazy.
is another reason for the post diet, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they want you to abstain from caffeine and alcohol and all of the things that can kind of disturb you. You know, I was going to say metabolically, but really everything you consume affects you metabolically. But like those main things, those things are going to alter your state. You know, sugar
Mm-hmm.
and any type of hallucinogen or anything like that. Like they want you to stay away from it. And some fats, right? We learned about
Yeah,
even like
no
pork
pork.
fat and
they
stuff like
said
that. I'm sorry to
they say just eliminate
the
pork from
pork
your diet
lobby of the United
completely.
States. I apologize. I'm still going
Yeah.
to do my best with bacon.
And my visual experience, actually, since you were talking about the green dots, my visual
They were
experience,
actually tiny squares.
tiny
Just
squares.
so you know,
Okay.
yeah.
So my visual experience was pretty much like the Avatar movie,
Yeah.
like those fluorescent colors, very vivid colors, and these shapes that would travel like light, you know, and 3D images
Oh, those are
of
incredible though, right? Like the detail, like your brain is an amazing place. The way those things, like you're like, wow, like you have a sense of, you know,
detail.
every dimension.
Yeah.
Like you saw
Hmm.
things in perfect fidelity
Yeah.
from every angle. You
Hmm.
know, it was really cool.
Yeah, things like people were passing by the side of my eyes, like I was my eyes were closed, but they were passing
Yeah.
around me
Yeah,
like
what you
this, and
felt like was
I,
beside you.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
I could see them in like fifth dimension
Right.
kind of thing, you
Right.
know, and the colors and just and I swear I heard her voice, you know, her voice talking to me because I was asking questions. So I heard her voice, you know, or this voice that maybe in my soul it sounds like the voice of my higher self or the voice of the higher power. I don't know, but it was this voice, you know, kind of giving me some answers and some insights, and I was just like, wow, it was amazing, you know. And now that I'm talking about it, I feel it in here, you know.
Yeah, I can see you're having a physical reaction.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty
So,
incredible.
mm-hmm.
Anything else? What else about your experience after your after experience?
Well,
Do you feel you're still kind of unraveling that a little bit?
yeah. There are things that I feel like it'll be good to have like a couple more experiences to go a little bit in depth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But there were some answers there, you know. And when you have um this stress about your existence,
Yeah.
right? This stress about why you here,
Mm-hmm.
or what's your mission, what's your purpose, or you know, what's my place in this world. When you find that connection, if we get to find that pure connection we're looking for, I think
Yeah.
we're gonna know exactly where our place is, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you're thinking that's it happens through ayahuasca?
When we find that connection, you know, I don't. they could be many different ways. This is the way I have, in my experience, known to be very very close to,
Hmm.
bringing you to that experience.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess some of the other things, we've discovered, right, in our research before our trip and then for this episode is, like it or not, this is what again, what kind of something similar to what I'd said before about ayahuasca and like the melding of the faiths. It's becoming a little bit mainstream now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing some of the research for this, like there was just a February 2024 study of clinical DMT use, which it was injected. It wasn't orally administered as it was now, and it was a little longer of a process, and so those people were kept under the influence for a period of hours, and things were documented. But you know, the, there were control group, which is tougher, right? but
Mm-hmm.
but there were marked improvements in you know awareness, depression, a
Yeah.
whole bunch of things. And so
I mean,
like it or not, like this is coming into our space. It's coming in, and I just love that. And primarily, they're using a lot to, like, that these studies were in regard to PSTD, of combat veterans and stuff like that. And so I think it's really amazing, you
yeah, I
know.
mean, there are a lot of studies that show that actually the use of DMT helps with anxiety disorders, addiction treatment.
Yeah.
We went to this center in Tarapoto, right, where they actually is an addiction center for,
Uh-huh.
and people they are admitted there for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, right? And they do the ayahuasca ceremony for days, and they use this to treat their addictions,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and, and if you think about it, you're like, but that's kind of contradictory, right? Because but this is not this is not like an addictive
No,
drug.
in fact, there's
Mm-hmm.
actually, I won't say zero addictivity to it, but almost zero. Like, that's one of the things that makes it a really unique treatment. Is
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have an addiction component to it.
Yeah, and what I found interesting is that, it's not
At least not a
they
chemical one, I
they
should say.
go there in this search, for themselves. They go there to find themselves so they can find a reason why you need to hold on to the pureness of yourself and not go back to the addictions, right?
Yeah.
Where you can actually have this connection to yourself without having to be addicted to anything that is destructive for you, right?
Yeah.
So I find this very amazing, and these people really find the cure. They get out of these addictions, and it's amazing. We actually also did a tour in the farm, right, where they
Oh
had
yeah.
all
Mm-hmm.
these medicine plants,
Yeah.
and
It's
I was
it's
just
in the
like,
yeah.
I
It's
felt
in the back.
like I felt like somebody took me out of my life a thousand years ago, and they brought me back. Like, this is where you belong. you know Everything seemed so familiar to me. Like, all this, like, I'm like, I need to bring this. I need to show the world that this is possible. We
Mm-hmm.
have everything we need. Nature is giving us everything we need
Mm-hmm.
to actually to heal. To treat ourselves from different illnesses. We need to go back to the natural resources. And there's everything. Everything we need is in nature.
Yeah.
If we go back to consuming raw things, like they said,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll take a while for us to go back in circle, to the beginning of time. But
Yeah, that
it's
might take
there. Is
that might
there?
take a little while. I mean, we
It's
could start by eating, whole,
yeah,
natural foods, which has been, emphasized for at least 20 years now.
yeah. But
So
it's very exciting to know that we have access to that, and
yeah.
that we, in a way, can be that bridge between the Amazon and the Western world, and maybe bring some of those things here, some of those teachings, some of those um, medicines here.
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And that was one of our intentions, to go there and learn a little bit more about those things, and how can we actually have access to that and bring them here,
Yeah.
right? Hopefully in a near future we can make that a reality.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what else? Oh, they said they use this for end of life care
Oh, I
too,
love that. So that's so fascinating, and that
right?
was something I didn't know, and I only learned from you while we were having a conversation. I think that's amazing. So it's almost like hospice and last rites. In the Catholic Church, they have last rites where a priest comes and
Mm-hmm.
blesses you as you're nearing the end of your physical life in your body. And I think that this is actually an amazing use of this drug. And just like tell me a little more about that. That's so cool.
Well, what I was reading is that they use this because, of course, it's going to happen
Yeah.
anytime,
Like
right?
so
And
so if I'm diagnosed with a terminally
you're
ill.
terminal, but these will help you accept, you know, get to that place in your mind where you're like happy with what you have accomplished, and happy to know that you're going to this better place, and you're going to find that pure connection, right?
Yeah.
And nothing's going to be between you and the connection, because what we have in this existence, our body and our physical desires and everything else, is what messes up with our connection with the spirit,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to have that interference anymore,
Yeah.
so you're going to be pure connection. And I guess you're already feeling it, right? When you
Yeah.
are having that ayahuasca experience, you're like, okay, I'm connecting.
Yeah.
So what they realize is that my connection is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And when I go, it's gonna be just me,
Yeah.
and the source.
Yeah. I think it's just a bit of a focus shift. Just one connection is taking focus over the others that we currently have in this world.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
perspective
One thing
shift.
I, you know, we know it's an amazing tool. It's an amazing medicine, but at the same time, I think you need to be mentally prepared to receive, in a way, because I've heard of experiences where people go a little like,
But
you know,
don't you think that by virtue of you seeking that out, that there's some type of already preparedness in that sense, right? Like for me, if I'm going to go seek out a psychedelic, treatment or experience because I'm looking to find something out or feel differently or whatever, I feel like you've already kind of done some of that work, right? But by me just entertaining that notion, I feel like you do that. And so what type of experiences are you talking about in terms of reactions? What do you mean? If you have any specific examples, that'd be great. Oh,
you need to prepare to receive something that you might not be expecting, but it's necessary for you to know, you
but
know?
but in light of our experiences, right? And I've only done this one time, and it's only been ayahuasca. I did not have your other experience that you did. Don't you feel like the context, and I'm just speaking of how I felt, like you feel like you're connected to truth in that way, and it's a very gentle exchange, an energy exchange, and so I would be I would be not surprised is not the word I'm looking for. I would be interested in to know like how does that get somebody to be like rattled it. Like you just feel so much love in it, and maybe it's not the same for everyone. It's almost like
Yeah.
your mom
Hmm.
has you like in her arms and she's talking to you. So I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, I guess like we said before, everybody will get what they need,
yeah.
but some people are not ready to receive what they need. Especially if you have gone through uh horrible traumatic experiences that can actually drive you insane, right?
Mhm.
So I I think that you if you have gone through traumatic experiences, it would be a good idea for you to work with a therapist first.
Okay, so this is what you're saying. So you're
Yeah.
prescribing. I get it.
It's more like, just be cautious. Be
So
cautious, right? Because there are things that you might learn with this experience that will cause you some grief, some pain, and you really need to be, you
But
know.
so again, so this kind of discussion is a little confusing for me because earlier we said that ayahuasca is going to show you what you need.
Right. Well, it's gonna show you what you need,
Okay,
but I'm not sure if everybody's ready to see it.
got it.
You I mean, it's necessary for you to see it for you to find a resolution, right?
Yeah.
But if you're psychic, if you are not ready to open up, it could be a little bit, harsh. So,
Again, I don't know. Again, I don't want to be. I just feel like other situations where people stumble upon ayahuasca and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know." You know what I mean? Like I feel like for you to, it's not like we can go down to the corner. I guess for us, right? I guess for other parts of the world, maybe you can just dip into some ayahuasca here and there, but for us, we really can't. And so I feel like there's an amount of intent and open mindedness just by virtue of the fact that you believe that that is a therapeutic option for you,
right.
right? And
Hmm.
so I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying not to
Oh,
be say like
you need
difficult, but
some
it's just weird.
before you go into the experience, you need to do some conscious work.
Yeah,
You know, be conscious that this is
shit's gonna
something.
get real, as they
Yes,
say.
it's gonna get real.
Okay, just get
You're not.
real.
It's not a joke. And
Right.
follow the instructions. Do as you're told. And it's good that you're being supervised.
Yep.
Um, and of course, always find trust trusted sources. Right.
Yeah.
Find people who will take you to the right places. You know. The shamanic experience I've heard is a different experience because they use the Icaros, right? They use the singing and so the trance gets a little bit deep deeper into you.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a little more mystical,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Yeah.
our experience wasn't as mystical because we didn't have that environment. But when you do it with a shaman and you do it for a couple of days, you actually get into this mystical experience
Mm-hmm.
outside of you too, you know?
Yep.
So I would like to experience that too. But in a whole, you know, if you're if you have come to the conclusion that you need to see, your internal world, that you need to connect to yourself in that way, do your homework, talk to yourself, talk to your therapist if it's
I talk to
necessary,
myself all the
right?
yeah. I've been doing it for years.
Do a little self how do you call this, a little
Evaluation.
self evaluation, soul searching, and maybe even trace your genealogical tree just to see what things you might encounter, so it's not so shocking, right?
Wow.
But and if you don't know how to approach it, just have in your mind that you're gonna have an opportunity to open a door for answers. You
Yeah.
open in this door for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you want to have your questions written so you don't forget, just write them and practice them in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about what it felt like to be what it feels like and what it doesn't feel like. Because listen, as a kid, right? And if it, I mean, I wasn't around in the '60s either, but psychedelics were huge in the '60s, and there was like all kinds of like, you know, bad information out there that you're gonna go insane and like all this other kind of stuff, and that was most likely not what would have occurred. There's a lot of people that did acid in the '60s and '70s are still alive, and they're still fine, and the people use it as a practice a lot to connect with a different perception in their mind. But so I guess yeah, so I guess I'll personalize it and say so. What I was so amazed at, which I indicated a little bit earlier, is that you are conscious
Hmm.
in it, in the trance, for lack of a better word, and you're also you have one foot in the present if you want to be, and so most of this experience, if not all of it, occurs with your eyes closed, right? Some people lay down, some people stand up, you know, uh, varying things. Most people are seated at the very least, and so you are aware of the sounds around you in your conscious world. If you open your eyes, you are in your present moment here, not completely detached from the effects of ayahuasca, obviously, but you're not inebriated like you would be with alcohol
Right.
or some other substance. You know what I mean? And so I found that to be fascinating. How it kind of unhinges you in one way from the physical world and the consciousness that we're used to living in, and then in another way you're still grounded in it, which to me makes it really speaks to the validity and the natural aspect of this thing, and so I just found that really amazing. You are physically compromised to a degree, right? Your physical reflexes are certainly not where they would be were you not on ayahuasca or some other hallucinogen, but they're intact, and so I just found that really cool. Like I was listening to stuff that went on around me, and I would open my eyes and sit up and look around and see what was going on otherwise, and then if I felt resolve in whatever I had seen or thought I saw, I'd go back down and just really an amazing thing. And I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
cool because I feel like most people, and I believed this prior to this experience, that in fact, when we talked about it initially, I said to you, like, would you mind if I just do this by myself and you just stay there to make sure I'm all right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I just imagine that you'd be completely relieved of your senses in general, physical and otherwise, I mean, purge
Unconscious.
yeah, and able to be compromised by someone or something if it wasn't a safe environment. And so our experience wasn't like that. I felt that, again, while there might have been a physical, there was certain not might have been, there was definitely a physical compromise in terms of your reflexes and stuff like that. Like if you had to run, like you were probably gonna fall,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but you were still aware of what was happening,
Yeah.
and so that was a relief to me,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. I
that
was.
was originally I was concerned for our safety. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, we don't know anything about this, and so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was kind of relieved with the fact that we were this place was recommended by a couple
four
people,
four out
right?
of five dentists recommended.
So I felt, and maybe because it is my country, it is my people, and so in a way, I felt like I felt home, right? So
Sure.
when we got there, and I realized that that was gonna be a safe place for us to do it together, I was like, we're gonna be fine, right? And then when I was laying down next to you, I remember like every now and then just opening my eyes to check on you,
Yeah, me
right?
too. I was doing the same thing
To
too.
make
Hmm.
sure you were okay,
Yeah.
and I hurt you sometime, you know, and I was like, it's good that I still know to care for you, I
Hmm.
still know that you're here with me. I'm not like completely
Right.
out,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And then I would close my eyes again and I will go back to that other world,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That was amazing. And yeah, I guess because I am from Peru, it was easier for me to be at ease, not at east.
Yeah. Being out east is great too, especially in the summer. No, but yeah.
To be
I
at
mean, I
ease.
don't know. I
Mm.
wasn't. Once we met the people we met and had the kind of conversations we met, I didn't. Once we decided that we were going there, I wasn't. I didn't have that feeling anymore.
Mhm.
Like I was just talking about initially, like when we thought about it while we were still in the U.S. We've talked about this a bunch of times. Um, and so, like, my feeling then was, and my understanding of that was, especially some of the stuff I saw on TV, was that you were not, you were going to be completely compromised. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, wow, like we could be abducted, we could be, physically assaulted. Like who would know? Like who could, and how could I even stop anyone? How
Right.
could I protect you or whatever? And so that really wasn't the case, and so it was good.
Yeah.
I thought that was really relieving.
Mhm. One of the things that we wanted to talk about too is, when you actually enter into one of these places, so join these ceremonies, you have to realize that this is a sacred ceremony, right? And this is part of their culture, is part of their rituals, right? And it's very, to them, it's a precious gift, an offering. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
a precious offering. So we need to be respectful of the things you're being offered. You need to be respectful of the people who are around you, right? These are sacred practices.
Yeah.
and you should take it as that, and these people are very advanced spiritually,
No, I
you
felt
know.
very. I mean, listen, the maestro himself had such an incredible, such a powerful presence. You know, you could feel that sense of stability in him, in consciousness and intent and just protection. And the people that he had working with him too were also very caring, very attentive people that you really you were. I was so grateful for
Yeah.
in that state
Hmm.
to be in the care of people like that. It was really really great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to discover that there are places in the world where you can go, where you can go and find that ease, find that community, of people who still want to do what's best for the world, right?
Hmm.
People who want to heal the world
Yeah,
still,
yeah,
and and they still have that hope.
while we don't need to get into specifics of it, but also not for an exorbitant amount of money. It was a
I
very
know.
fair amount of money. You'd
Hmm.
spend way more money than that at a happy hour,
Yeah.
or going out at night, and well, I mean, we definitely would. But no, but for real, it was really inexpensive. It was the best of the best in terms of caring and attentiveness and all of it. And so that was a really that to me makes it so much more valuable and sacred to know that there's not a monetary component
Hmm.
behind it for them. They're not even in Peru with the exchange rate, that they weren't retiring on that money. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was
Yeah,
very
I
very
think
fair. The taxi cost 4 times the amount of the treatment. So put that in
the
mind.
the thing is, a lot of a lot of people, will start doing these things
They
for the
have they
money,
do this in the country already. It's called neo
Yeah,
shamanism.
and
Hmm.
and and people from other countries will bring their own people and charge them ridiculous amounts of money,
Yeah, they do it in
right? Because
hotels all over the
I've
country
seen I've
now.
seen
In the
retreats
U.S., I
for
mean.
$9,000,
Yep.
$10,000,
Yep.
and I grew up in the mountains in Peru.
Hmm.
Nothing costs that much,
Yep.
nowhere,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
So
I mean, basically landscaping and putting it in a bucket.
so this is
That's
why
really
I'm
what it
like,
is.
if we can actually help people get these resources or get to these places without having to break their piggy bank,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all about, you know, helping each other in this healing journey,
Yeah, this
helping
is
each other in this discovering
this is
journey,
why we're
right?
here, right? This is why you and I started this podcast. This is this
Yeah.
is this is right in line with our mindset and our desire
Yeah, our
to to
purpose.
to
Yeah.
to you know help people to really connect to hearts and minds, and navigate some of the stuff that's not so easy about life as a
Yeah.
human, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So.
And know that everywhere in the world are people interested in your wellness, it is. There are people interested in the wellness of the whole world as a whole, you know
Mm-hmm.
but you just have to go to the right places
Yeah.
with the right people.
Nikki.
So yeah,
So what else?
this was it's it's a very emotional thing for me. I don't know why.
You know, it, I think in today's world, to be able to reach a true and real time understanding of the evidence of the soul, and what you and I we know to believe the eternal existence of the soul, and that the larger architect of life is present
Mhm.
in your existence, and there to aid you along the way. And in the Bible, the Christian Bible, Jesus says, look, seek me and you shall find me. I will knock,
Mhm.
and if you open the door, I will enter. And this is that.
Mhm.
And it's so great to know, if you just look, that it's there. And it's not just in the mountains of Peru. It's not just, it's literally everywhere, and
Everywhere.
in
Mhm.
every person in our church community, in the many souls that we're blessed to connect with all the time, the people that you interact with in your healing practice, and which is growing day by day, rightfully so, with the tremendous work you do in there. And so it's just rewarding to know and reassuring to know that it's real,
Yeah.
you know. And so
It is
that's why
real.
it is an emotional thing. It is very
Yeah.
emotional. I was very grateful to have the experience, and as you recall, I wanted to do it again the following day. You know, we got stuck there in a tropical deluge, and so what I mentioned earlier on our way in was that the compound, as I'll call it, was separated from the main road by a very curvaceous and unpaved path, and so that was no longer available for the rain. And so we spent most of the following day in our room, um, hoping for the rain to abate, only because we had personal engagements that we need to get back to. We had a flight to catch back to Lima from Tarapoto, and so we were kind of alarmed. But then I said, hey, maybe we're stuck here
Mm-hmm.
because we should do another round. I was go for the other round, one more
I was
round.
like, okay, we missed the flight. We'll take the
Yeah,
next flight
right. And so
next
we
day.
we looked into all those things, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, we decided to not do that, and but it was just really really great experience, and really that you're largely unplugged. By the way, we didn't mention that up there in the mountains,
Oh my
there's not a
God.
great cell signal. You're not really available for stuff, which is once you let that sink in, it's great.
It's
You know,
amazing. It's
you know,
amazing when you realize that your connection is not really is not just the Wi-Fi connection,
yeah,
what you need,
yeah.
That's not the connection you need. The connection you need is you, yourself, source, and
So it's
but especially yourself, the wisdom of your soul. And that's what I think was very relevant to me. That's exactly what ayahuasca showed me.
hmm
So,
great.
yeah, exciting.
Exciting.
And when we came back, actually, we started reading this book. And we have to talk about this book in another episode, maybe, because
Ah,
the book
yes.
is called The Celestine Prophecy. If
Uh-huh.
you haven't read it, you can look it up, and we'll be discussing.
Just don't watch the movie. It's horrible.
we
Read the book. Don't
didn't
watch
like
the
the
movie.
movie.
It was awful.
But great information, things that you can actually hold on to and make them part of your daily life,
Why
right?
don't we do as you say and think that through and make that another episode? I think
Yes, for sure.
I'd like to talk about it.
For sure. Very, very great information, and like I said, nature, we are part of this amazing creation, and being in the jungle actually makes you feel like you're part of this whole, and
To
you are
have fun and games.
created as perfectly as the beautiful trees. So, well, thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you learn a little bit more about ayahuasca. Like
Maybe.
we said, everyone will experience something different,
Yeah.
but if you are looking for that connection to source, for that connection to your own soul, your own wisdom,
I'm
I
down with
think this is the
DMT. Yeah, you know me. I'm down with DMT.
yeah. All right,
All
so
right.
reach out to us. We'll take you to the right place with the right people, and you're gonna you're gonna be in a place where you're gonna feel safe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great to be back.
Great to be back.
Hey everyone. If you enjoyed this content, Jess and I would be very grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts. Subscribing is the best way to support us and makes sure we can continue to reach the people who can benefit from the information we share. We also invite you to follow us on social media. We are On the Run with Jess and Tom on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and OTR Jess and Tom on X. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with us, and thank you for your support.